welcome back once again. Another episode of the DGT podcast. We are united once more. Check in on Scott and Tony. How you guys doing?
Hey, doing good.
Whoa, good. Doing all right. Wow, exciting. So, we are armed with a new topic. The topic this week is on technical development. So, more specifically, the technical journey, the non-linear, as we will argue, journey of developing the mechanics of your play such that you can make music on the classical guitar. So that is our broad topic, and we'll go right into it. So it is a journey, but it must begin. So we'll open up with where exactly does that journey begin? Say you've decided you want to play classical guitar. So traditionally, in the past, and probably still for the present, one should we'll probably talk about it, argue whether or not it's necessary, select a teacher. Have a teacher to get things rolling off, someone to guide you with their knowledge and experience. So we could talk about just the process of selecting a teacher. I don't know, Tony, why don't you kick that off? How would you go about selecting a teacher?
Yeah, I really like the term sensei, and sensei meaning, one who's gone first. So it doesn't necessarily mean you need, conservatory level instruction from the very beginning. You can find somebody locally that teaches. And if you're looking to study classical guitar, it's really good to maybe do some digging to make sure that this person is a real classical guitarist. It's not uncommon to go to music programs websites, and this person teaches classical guitar, teaches jazz, teaches pop, teaches piano, so doing some vetting. I think if you want to play classical guitar, I think it's important that at least you find somebody that has made classical guitar their focal point. I think that's an important point.
Yeah,
finding a teacher.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind, and I don't know how critical it's appropriate to be. We talked about this a lot in the past. It's the idea of, is your teacher performing? Man, on one hand, there's a lot of really great teachers who don't perform a whole lot and are still effective teachers. But on the other hand, if you see that a teacher is performing and is being successful, you're like, whoa, whatever they're doing is working. But then on the other hand, they could be not the most skilled teacher, even though they have that practical experience. I'll throw this one to Scott. What do you think? Do you think your teacher should be a high octane performer? What do you think about that balance between performing and teaching in your teacher selection?
Yeah. So no, I don't. I don't think that's necessary at all. In fact, I think that sometimes that can not be ideal. It depends. I mean, sometimes in university settings, then, if you're at a conservatory, then that's really good because you need that high level kind of, modeling, maybe. There are different things that go into it at that level that I think are more important. But, you can be a performing teacher, and I think that's very good. It means that you're putting, you're putting the practice into use, and performing yourself. But that's not the only goal, I mean, I think your teacher should be able to execute on what they're teaching you with a lot of competency in order to model what should be done.
Yeah.
But as far as performing it in a performance setting, I don't think so. And I also think that a lot of time with more kind of focused performers, it's hard for them to be in the realm of, kind of the learning steps, where, you still kind of understand the ideas behind what you're doing versus just kind of being in the flow state. And I feel like a lot of high level performers are in the flow state, are kind of beyond a certain point in their development where it can be difficult for them to guide somebody who might need more guidance.
So perhaps for a newer player, a concert guitarist may not be ideal, but for a higher level player.
Yeah, I mean, I even think, like I work with a lot of non-majors at Wayne State, and these guys are like incredible. They're very, I mean, the skill ranges because often it's, not their primary instrument. So, I mean, I have students who are focused on classical guitar to a degree, and others who come at it from like jazz guitar or metal, and they're extremely talented in those disciplines, but so I think, and even in those cases, that they might not benefit in the same way from, a high level kind of concert guitarist. And I wouldn't consider myself that anyway, of course. I'm nowhere near that. I don't practice enough but like I said, I mean, from my experience, it's better to have somebody who is more grounded in the steps that are most critical to the student at that time. So like in a conservatory where somebody's auditioning with high level pieces to even get in, like, then they're wondering about maybe competitions and playing concertos and stuff like that, in which case, that would be more ideal.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. The coach analogy comes to mind.
Sure.
Because Tony and I talked a bit about this off pod. Whoa. We actually talk outside the podcast. Is the idea that, a lot of those coaches, those old timer football coaches, they're not on the field, throwing footballs and whatnot, or even like, something like a swim coach, they're not out there actively swimming, and maybe they didn't go to the Olympics either, but they have that skill of coaching. So yeah, it does certainly seem to be a thing in the world where you can definitely teach and not be, a super high level.
I mean, there are definitely exceptions, right? Like where, you have a coach, like I remember hearing a story of like a quite a famous swim coach who couldn't even swim,
Nice.
but was able to coach his team to very high levels.
Interesting.
But also we see this with tremendous players being terrible teachers as well. So there are always exceptions, but I would have to say though, those that are doing it professionally, performing and gigging, are going to be overall, this is a generalization, overall better equipped to take a student from nothing to performance, to the ability to share music with other people. I think that is like a generalization.
Yeah, and you can see that too. It's just like if you're walking someone through performance, that's an experiential thing. Yeah, so I'm hearing some nice ideas on how to evaluate and look for a teacher.
So, but Ben, you were saying even like, is a teacher necessary, right? Like that's a discussion point.
Yeah, that could be. I guess
yes.
while we're still here at
yes.
the beginning. Tony says yes. Tony, but what about you?
Without any bias?
Can't you just go on YouTube and learn all the secrets of the universe?
Yes.
It changes things up a bit. The problem with all of the material that's available on YouTube, you can probably get quite far just on the internet.
Well, the problem with YouTube is it's not like structured. If you want to do like a video type service, I strongly recommend something like Tonebase, where it is well organized. And I mean, for like, if you wait till Black Friday for like the price of one Jason VO lesson, you can buy a lifetime subscription to Tonebase.
Nice.
And, you know, I did because I thought it was worth it, you know.
One Jason VO lesson is worth a lifetime subscription to Tonebase.
Exactly.
It will prepare you.
And so, I mean, everything is structured. You can even sign up and do lessons if you wanted to, but just everything is laid out and very nicely. It progresses nicely. There are forums you can ask questions and get feedback from. There are live presentations where you can ask questions of the clinician or the presenter. So like that, yes, there's a lot you can do online, which I strongly recommend if you don't have a teacher, like, and you just need some motivation, like Tonebase is great. But starting off from scratch, I think a teacher is necessary at some point. You don't want to go too far on your own because you develop bad habits, and bad habits are difficult to undo. So starting off on a good foot with a teacher, you know, on the fundamentals, I think is important. So yeah, I think a teacher is necessary at every level, or at least, you know, colleagues and mentors, you know, at any level, you know, the ability for, right now, Ben, you are Sans teacher, but you definitely ask Scott and I plenty of questions.
Oh, I draw on you both.
And
all the time.
you know, I'm constantly seeking out people to play for.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to a one-on-one human interaction where someone can see what you're doing and be an outside perspective. That's huge, and you're not getting that with a YouTube video. You're not getting someone directly in the room giving you feedback, letting you have their perspective. And you know, if it's an experienced teacher, they're going to pick up on some fundamental stuff that you're doing poorly right away, and that could save you a ton of time. And I think we're also, you know, voice your opinions if you disagree with my assessment. You know, in the beginning, you don't need to study with a concert level guitarist. It's probably not a good idea if you're just figuring things out and, you know, dropping $350 for a lesson with Jason VO, you know, every other week or every week. It's like, that's not ideal. So, you know, you would pay a reasonable amount of money for a quality instructor, and you probably progress much faster than just being on your own. So there is, even though we are in the, you know, the digital age and we can get quite far online, there's still real value to a teacher. So says the teachers who have a vested interest in continuing to be economically viable. Don't replace us with AI.
You can do teachers online too. Like if you can't find somebody locally, I'm sure, like, I take lessons. I've taught people online. I'm sure you guys would too. You know.
Yeah, you can.
People could always reach out to us. We'd be happy to work with anybody
via Zoom. You can get good work done in Zoom. But yeah, okay. So that's kind of where you begin. Some stuff we've thrown out there about selecting a teacher who works for you. And again, the thrust of this discussion is on kind of the raw mechanical, technical development. But we kind of need to discuss why anyway. Why do we even need a technique? I'll float out an idea, is that technique is so that you can express the music on the instrument in a successful and quality way. It allows you to share the music with people. Because if you mechanically, physically cannot do it, then you're not being successful, you're not able to share, and that's no fun. So I suppose that's where we're headed. That's the goal, the reason for technique. Any ideas from you guys on why we need a technique? What's it even for?
Yeah, good technique can prevent injury.
Ooh, good point there. Don't want to injure yourself.
You know, you have more longevity in your, you know, the health of your hands, the health of your body, and the way you sit.
Yeah,
with good technique. I think good, you know, you said it allows you to be expressive. Good technique gets all the mechanical things out of the way so you can play efficiently and effectively. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just another way to say what you just said, but
Yeah. I mean, the answer is fairly straightforward, but it's worth keeping the goal in mind so we don't get too caught up in the weeds of how we're moving our fingers. So there's a reason behind the technique.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I tend to think of technique as just like, I don't know, it's kind of you're expanding the perimeter of your kind of work zone, so that, the more your technique is capable, then you can expand into a broader area. Like, if your technique is limited, you're going to be limited on the music that you might be able to select. You won't be able to select maybe music that you're interested in. So I think that is kind of like the broad, important reason for establishing it. Like, even if like I tell students often, like, where they're like, well, what, I can do this song laying on the ground with my eyes closed, Yes, but you'll need these techniques in order to play songs later on that you might want to expand into, So it's like not always about the song you're playing, but what comes next. I think it's a preparation in a sense for, just being able to grow musically.
Yeah, it opens up the world of repertoire, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
you don't want to be learning how to do tremolo while you're learning a tremolo piece. Like, it's great to isolate just the technical aspect to get it to sound good and then apply it to a piece.
Or there's tons of things that come before tremolo,
arpeggios,
like,
right? Like, like if you want to play Villalobos Etude 1, just practicing that right hand on open strings, or practicing it on just like a simple fly chord progression could be so much more beneficial than just sitting here just trying to like read all the notes and work out the technique. And for sure.
Yeah, I guess my second point too is that technique, in a sense, because we all have like a technique is becoming more kind of kind of mapped out, or it's like this kind of, we have more kind of accepted ways of doing things. And I think that those ways of doing things are building these certain techniques based on some conventions, that have been established at this point. It kind of levels the playing field for all students to do it. It's kind of like a meeting in the middle of like, this is the best technique. Because I mean, what we think generally as like the best technique might not be the best technique for everyone individually. And that's where a teacher can come in handy quite a bit, is where you have small deviations from like, certain techniques. But that generally speaking, it will allow the greatest number of students to achieve the highest level of ability. And I think that that's pretty promising. Unlike, you take some people when technique was being developed, or it was underdeveloped in a sense, I think it narrowed the field of people who might be successful, because it's like, it was much harder and less broadly applicable to, everybody's hands and genetics.
Yeah. Hopefully things are getting settled out. Guitar is still such a young instrument, but we've got some years of technique history, so we're working on it, I suppose. But yeah, I really like the idea of expansion too, because it still keeps you tied with the music. It's like, the point of your technical expansion is always what music that you can express. Yeah, that's nice. So we've begun our journey. We selected our hypothetical teacher, and we know our goal, it appears to be to make music in a healthy, sustainable way. So I think next that kind of takes us to progression. And this is something that that I have struggled with a lot in my technical journey. Mine has, like probably everyone else's, has been quite nonlinear. Um, and navigating through the technical woods is very challenging. To be a little bit more specific, maybe with a hypothetical example, say you're starting out and you're starting to build your technique, and you're trying stuff out to see what works. You're trying things out and just navigating how to progress. I think one thing we can start with is how to evaluate ideas. This is one thing that I was told. 'Cause an issue is, say you're trying a new technical idea, and it will feel uncomfortable in the beginning. But that doesn't necessarily mean it isn't working. So arguably, there is a period that you have to sit with an idea, and then wait and see if it's actually effective and if it works. Because that's the ultimate arbiter of if a technique is working, is if, whoa, no duh, it works. So that's kind of a process that I was given, that I was instructed in, and I've had some luck with it. This idea of trying something new, sitting with it for a while, seeing if it works. What do you guys think about that? More specifically, how long do you think you have to sit with a technical idea before you deem it, wow, it's not working? Because it's going to take a while to get in your muscle memory. What do you guys think?
Yeah, at this point, I find that I can adapt pretty quickly to new techniques or adjustments. But when I was much younger, that wasn't the case. And what I strongly recommend is getting a mirror where you can visually see what you're doing. Because if it looks uncomfortable, or if it looks like you can see tension, it may not, you can tell right away, not right away, but you can at least have a way to observe from the other viewpoint, not from internally, but from externally, if something is working and looking right. That's how something looks isn't still going to determine if it's the right or wrong thing, but it's one element to judge whether it's something that you're doing right, because you do want to find a model. If like, okay, I want to play this piece and let's say it's tremolo and I really love so-and-so how they play it and they just look so relaxed when they play it. Okay, so what do they look like when they're doing tremolo? And as you are in the mirror trying your tremolo or whatever, it doesn't have to be tremolo, you at least have a model, right? Or a teacher can model it. And then you have a way to assess it visually with a mirror. I think that is one important element. Now, as far as sitting with an idea, like I said, I don't know, lately I don't know, I feel like it doesn't take very long to bring something into my skills. Like a couple weeks, but I think maybe, even in a couple weeks, every day, like assess. Don't just like, oh, I'll just do this for a little bit, and then I think you should assess daily on how it feels and how it's going, and see, okay, maybe it feels good, but what if I'm trying to be expressive? And I think there should be regular assessment if you're making, fundamental changes or trying something.
Yeah,
that's a fundamental.
Ben, could you give an example of maybe a technique that you're talking about, like that you would sit with for a while, maybe one that you've had for a while, then how long did you have it? And then you changed it. Why did you change it? And like just the details behind that. Because I'm kind of curious. I know I might have some to compare with what I've done in the past, but I'm just curious.
Yeah. So kind of my journey has been, trying out tons of different ideas and then many of them being unsuccessful. So it's just been like, try this, try this, try this, try this, try this. So I think one pitfall I was falling into is doing something for a sec and then it feeling uncomfortable and then not being able to sit with the discomfort and then making a radical change. And then feeling like, oh, the radical change is great. Now I feel better. And then finding something to nitpick about it and then making another radical change. So kind of this pendulum swing back and forth, which I think was unhealthy for me. So that's why I ask that question. So that's where I'm coming from, to be more clear. But to give an example, I tons and tons of examples. I'll go over some stuff I'm working on right now. It's nice and current. So for audio listeners, it's kind of hard to. Well, I'll do my best to explain it. So it's for your right hand, the rosette hand. One thing that I have worked on tons and tons over the years is deciding, and it is hard to explain, not visually. It's not the, I call it the tilt. Wow, it's hard, not visually.
Well, it doesn't have to be too specific. Like, what do you mean tilt? You're just tilting your hand
it's the tilt of it's the tilt of your palm.
Okay.
Like
so you're tilting it inward toward the rosette?
Yeah, tilting it either inward, and it's not the wrist angle per se. It's not kinked wrist versus straight wrist. It's the angle that your palm is tipping.
Yeah.
The arm gets into it. So I've played so much with my tilt over the years. If you're in the perspective of a right-handed person, for a long time I played quite far tipped over to the right, so tipping towards the bridge. And then I worked for a long time to kind of be more centered, and then maybe now I'm biased a little bit tipping towards the fingerboard and seeing how that works. But like every time I've changed my tilt, there have always been things that feel more comfortable and then things that don't feel comfortable. So it's never been like a clear, I kind of envy Tony a little bit. For me, it's never been a clear picture of like, I've made this change and nothing has ever just clicked in. Been like, oh, wow, this is for sure what I should do. There's always been some pros and then some cons. For example, the way I'm tilting now, it feels great for rest stroke. Fingers feel more aligned and it feels great for my thumb. So I really like that. Downside is tone. Tone is not where I want it to be, especially with the I finger. So it's like, this change feels really good, but not in performance yet because I haven't quite adjusted to that. But I know in practice the change feels good. And but there's parts of it that aren't there yet. And it's like, oh, do you just panic and be like, all right, gotta throw it away, nails aren't working? Or do you sit with it for a while? And I think what I'm doing is sitting with it for a while. And to answer my own question, I think maybe 1 or 2 months, for me at least, because it takes me a long time to fully digest something. And by what I think by fully digest is, am I mostly comfortable doing it in performance, where if I'm performing, I won't revert back to what I was doing before. And then I think if I've fully digested something and it's not working, then, it's time to think of a different solution. In my opinion, or at least from my experience so far, since it's based on muscle memory and there's always going to be that discomfort of doing something new, it almost seems necessary to sit with an idea for a while before you can really pass a solid judgment on it, because it's going to feel uncomfortable in the beginning. So that's what's helped me, I think. Again, I feel like I still have some breakthroughs to make it through as far as with my playing and my technique. So I feel like I'm on the right path, but definitely things aren't all like, magically lining up and falling into place. But that's a more specific example of, me finding an idea, applying it, and seeing what happens, seeing if it's successful or not. So,
yeah.
So we'll see. I think it's still out. Tony made a good point about constantly evaluating every day. Because, like, yes, I'm sitting with it, but every day I'm seeing, okay, did my nail shape improve just a little bit? Did my tone improve just a little bit? And it's not even, I think it's also a mistake to, like, set aside a day and be like, okay, this is the day I'm figuring it out. And then you put yourself in a bind of extremism where you're like, oh man, I didn't figure it out today. You know, the technique must not work. Or it's like, no, give it time. And if there's a gradual trend of improvement, then you might be on the right track. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, maybe a good kind of indicator too would be something like, because sometimes we have good days and bad days in practice, right?
That's true.
So like it's hard to evaluate. I mean, I think obviously you want to be evaluating it each day. I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
But having something where like, you have a piece, maybe just a few measures of a piece that you record yourself playing, with the technique, and then like, you start a new technique, and maybe every 2 weeks or something, you record yourself playing that and just observe it. I've never done that, but I think that might be helpful. And just kind of watch it and listen and say, yeah, I do look more relaxed, or this looks easier for me. I don't know. I mean, obviously there's a lot that would go into that. It's not like scientific or something, but maybe just, maybe it's a section of a piece of music you already know very well to kind of eliminate just the fact that you got better at it over time. But it's like the test out section.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, that's something to keep an eye on.
Because over time, like sometimes if you see like I don't know, when people might try to like lose weight or something, like, stepping on the scale every day is important to a degree. I don't know. I have no experience in that, but I mean, like, within a month or something, you might lose a couple pounds, and then you're like, okay, you can kind of see the progress more clearly with a greater amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, stepping on the scale is I mean, I think, like, if you want to equate it to losing weight, I would equate it to your daily assessment is, how do I feel today? Was my calorie intake a deficit? Did I exercise today? And then you go and you check the scale. Well, I didn't lose weight. Well, I feel better, or I ate better. I was in you may not see the results. And that's kind of like, you check in. How does this technique feel? How does it sound? You check in. You may not see a result today or tomorrow, but then eventually you go to perform, or you go and you do record it, and you hear, oh yeah, that actually works out well. That's the stepping on the scale where you see the difference. So I feel like checking in doesn't necessarily have to be quantified, but it has to be, just like a mental, like, how did this feel? How did this go? It didn't work today. Maybe I need to change my nail shape to accommodate my new tilt, and things like that. It's an interesting thing, I got a question for you guys. I'm gonna put you guys on the spot here.
Oh man,
I gotta go.
Yeah. I mean, have you guys worked through any technique books?
That's a good question. No, I have never religiously followed a technique book. My instructor in college got me to get the it's not the Giuliani, it's the Papararo.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Was that one. But it's all that arpeggio work, but I think I failed to do it because I just didn't understand how to play arpeggios. So I didn't know how to play arpeggios, so I wasn't seeing any progress, and it wasn't satisfying. It didn't make sense. I wasn't progressing. I just didn't know how to play arpeggios, and if it's a whole book on arpeggio playing, then you're going to be miserable the whole time. So no, I have not. I have not really progressed linearly through someone's idea of a technical program. I know the Giuliani arpeggios are big.
Those are the right-hand studies. But that's not a complete technique book. That's just arpeggios of the classical era of that type of music. Giuliani's soar, it is not very applicable to I mean, it's good to go through and get those, those impulses in your hands and patterns kind of worked out. It's a great place to do some arpeggios, but I don't think as far as like the type of repertoire like I play like that, a lot of that stuff happens. Unfortunately, it's not. There are a few from
Interesting.
That.
So let's see. My top 2 ones that I looked at the most. Any guesses?
Pumping Nylon.
Pumping Nylon.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like who wouldn't look through that?
Yeah.
I mean that's a golden technique book. I mean I definitely looked through that quite a bit and worked on a number of the sections in detail. I think that has a lot of great information in it. Okay, second one.
I don't know. That's the only one I know about.
That's the only one.
Giuliani and Pumping Nylon.
Well, yeah. No, what is it, Scott?
I don't know if I say this right, but the Kitharologus.
Yeah, that's what I call it. Kitharologus.
Kitharologus.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Isnaiola. Yeah,
Ricardo Isnaiola. That book is amazing. So let's mention some stuff. So we mentioned Pumping Nylon. What I like about Pumping Nylon is it's not that expensive, and it covers a lot of things, including it has the Giuliani right hand 120 exercises. Oh. So for the cost of it alone, it's great. And there's a lot of good and useful information in there. I don't feel like it gets to the core, though. I do think it's like, I strongly recommend that book for like, somebody that has private lessons and just needs, something like some exercises here, some exercises there, and the teacher's really dictating kind of what's going on. But as far as like self-driven start to finish, the Kitharologus book is phenomenal because it talks about the goals, right? And all these different exercises. It's like, I find when you go through them, it's, you have to be flexible and you have to adjust your nail shape and your hand position to execute these. And then you end up finding, you end up kind of working your way towards like this middle ground where you can do everything fairly well. Right. Mm-hmm. And so just by going through these different exercises, okay, I got to do like, rest stroke I&M, with my thumb doing free stroke, but then I have to do free stroke I&M with my thumb doing rest stroke, and then I got to do free stroke. Yeah, but see, I
think Ben might quit the guitar if he picks up that book.
No,
I don't think so.
No,
I've given him a few exercises.
Tony gave me some.
Yeah,
Tony gave me some.
It is intense.
It's amazing.
I can attest that it spurred change.
Yeah,
and like my hand position and nail.
No, I mean, it forces. It forces you to consider a lot, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like, I guess what I was joking about is that sometimes it can just be overwhelming because, like, I think it's in the back of the book, he has this kind of like, this
breakdown of lessons on like, what's it like, do this one and this one for level one.
And I literally did that. I had I mapped it out and I put like little dog-eared the pages or put little tabs on the pages so I could flip back and forth and do 1, then 2, then you're like, okay, do number 17 and then do 35. And you're like, do this for like 2 minutes and 37 minutes.
But if you're just getting into it, though, you can just start it. I mean, it tells you just start at the beginning. They have like a level 1 and there's like, several exercises, including right hand, left hand, arpeggios. And so it's like really great.
Oh, it's a gem. Yeah.
It's really great because it also tells you like the goals and the approach. It says articulate from the base of the fingers, watch for perfect stability of the hand and arm, adapt position of the arm is needed for movement across the strings, and so it really gives you like the technical aspect. It's not just an arpeggio. Great. What do I do with an arpeggio?
Yeah.
Well, it tells you what to do with your arpeggios. So that's one great resource. Another great resource is the Quaderneros, which just means notebook by Carlavaro. This is less organized.
That's what you were talking about, Ben. I think that's probably what Brian recommended, the Carlavaro.
No.
No?
I think it's Papararo.
Papararo. Okay.
It's similar to the Giuliani.
Okay.
Stuff. where it's just a book of arpeggios.
Yeah. Okay. Is it Carl Navarro? Is that he does a lot of like left hand type, like lifting off and shifting type
Well,
stuff.
I mean, that's what we like are
Most known for maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but like there are there's like 4 notebooks, and this book is like a complete, and so it has like left hand, right hand, it has scales and left hand technique conclusion. So yeah, the notebook 1 is diatonic scales, then right hand technique, so arpeggios and various exercises, left hand technique, changing positions of the hand on the fingerboard, and then the left hand technique conclusion. So that's a great book. Now for like collegiate level students, the Capel book is like the Bible. Is pretty thick, but it is like literally called the Bible of classical guitar technique, and this dissects everything. Very German.
Nice.
And it is, I mean, there are pictures, there are examples. It's excessive. And
Nice.
for college and pre-college, it may be something worth checking out. But like, I really like the Kithar Logos book for somebody who's been playing guitar for a little bit and is just looking to develop their technique more. I think it's laid out really well. That and or the Pumping Nylon, especially if you have a teacher. If you don't have a teacher, the Kithar Logos can really help you find your way. And so the reason why I asked that, Ben, is because these exercises, they like Scott said, they kind of force you to find a way to do things, and being able to do the various techniques, you kind of discover like the middle ground for your hand, your hands. And then there's like little tidbits of information that like we don't necessarily think about. And so, I encourage you to pick up something and go through it and work it. Get that book.
Some nice recommendations. I might pick up all them books. Yeah.
And I mean, those I still use for warm-ups. I cycle through whatever I'll live with something for a couple of weeks, and then I'll cycle through and just grab the other book, and then and then pull out Pumping Nylon. And so at my level, I feel like I've got most of my techniques sorted out, but there's always things to be refined, and that comes just from doing weird combinations of things. That way I'm able to, in a piece, if I want to on a fly, go to thumb rest stroke. Like it's like no problem. Like I don't think about it. Switching between free stroke and rest stroke. Like, oh, I really want this to come out. Or we're playing and I realize, wow, I'm not like, this needs to be louder. And I can push it with rest stroke without even thinking. Like I don't have to move my hand a severe amount to do it. So I think technical exercises are an element to this.
Yeah. One thing, maybe a question directed at the Kithar Logos book. And you've made some decent arguments already for some of the things that the book is arguing for, as far as quickly changing between rest and free stroke. Do you think there is anything overboard in that particular book? Like,
yeah, wow, he's
having you work on this skill. Is this even practical? Does this happen in the repertoire?
Yeah, after about like exercise like 60 something, it's a little bit ridiculous, but there are good things. Like they talk about like natural harmonics, and there's just like, okay, like how often do I play a piece, chromatic scale and artificial harmonics? Why do I need to practice that? Unless I'm specifically playing a piece that I need that, then I have an exercise to build it. Like I don't go through this regularly in the or there's like intervals with slurs and stuff. And I'm like 2-finger, like pull offs and stuff. I'm like, when am I going to do that? Like,
I actually thought you were going to say after exercise 6.
Yeah, no. Trills in the upper voice above a bass line. Extensions, no, that's good. Trills and shifts conclusion. Like there are things that are like, well, I don't really see diatonic scales in artificial harmonics, violin type harmonics. double slurs. Yeah, this thing of double slurs.
Of course.
Yeah,
Practice your double slurs.
I haven't played. I've never played any repertoire with it. Maybe I just am that miserable, terrible. But these ideas, But the good thing is if I had repertoire or I approach a piece that has these things, it's going to cover it. It probably has it in here. So then you have some exercise you can, make reference to and practice in development. And so
it's very complete. I mean, I'll be honest and say, like, I have not looked at Pumping Nylon or that book in some time. I've talked about it with students and I've referenced it there, but not like for my own use. And, that it probably would be a good thing to do now and then, just as maintenance and even expanding, for sure. But I think at some point you do kind of like, with this question of like double slurs, it's like if you're playing a piece with it, then you kind of create some type of like little exercise to develop it. And so after you've been playing for some time, like your technical exercises are really kind of specific to the repertoire you're trying to develop at that time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you just got to use your discernment. Just be like, I have this as a resource if I need it, but it doesn't make sense to practice that right now.
But I mean, the ideas in both those books, I think those two are quite great.
Yeah.
Both are kind of funny because, like, I think that Isnayola's book is like gymnastics or something. It's like, and that's like the same as like Pumping Nylon. It's like working out. It's like this kind of idea of like a very kind of physical element, which in some ways too, and I think it's kind of an interesting topic, like to detach it from the music, and how much you want to do that. And what the benefits are, detaching, technique from the music can allow you to be maybe more objective about it, to kind of view it and maybe tweak it depending on what you're doing without the influence of, I can't get to this spot, or I'm kind of having some like, tension tied up in the shift into these slurs or something. It's like, okay, well, if I just take it out of context and work on it, then I can kind of bridge that like, issue I'm having and start feeling more successful at it, then put it into the repertoire. I think it goes both ways. There's benefits in both ways. Keeping it with the music allows you to, of course, really refine it in the way that you're going to end up with it. So I don't know. What do you guys think of those ideas?
Well, I mean, we do have the tradition of etudes, so it's just
that's
the
true.
idea that I guess that would be the synthesis that our tradition has come up with is this is music, but it's meant to practice a technical skill.
Yeah.
So we do have the etude, but I do think there is a lot of value to separating it. I just have to be careful that it's not all that I do. It feels a lot more efficient because you can really hone in on one thing in particular and put all your focus towards it. Because my mind's in a different spot when I'm working on a technical thing versus being expressive while playing. So I think there's with my limited experience, I think there's tremendous value from splitting things off. Just the pitfall I have to be wary of is, just doing technique all day and then not playing any music anymore. Because remember, beginning of our discussion, that's the point, is so that you can share music. But Tony, what are your thoughts on divorcing?
I strongly think what I like about them separated is that you can focus intensely on the mechanics of something. So, practicing something, with the metronome extraordinarily slow, really focusing on every element of the technique, I think is important, because when I do it with the music, I'm split between the music and the technique, where my practice, I feel like, is less effective. If I can focus on one thing intensely, it's more effective. So once I get the technique going or warmed up or whatever, my hands are doing what they need to do, then I work on the music and then I can focus on the musical elements and without being hindered by the technique. So I can be more expressive and focus more intensely on the music. And what happens is I find if I do it too much or I do it too long, where I take a part of a song and I make that my exercise, well, then it becomes muscle memory. And then it risks, like, I get a false sense of, hey, I know this. Because I don't. It's just I've practiced it 1,000 times because of muscle memory. And like for me, I would rather, once again, divorce the two, separate the two. Mm-hmm. And that way, when I'm practicing the music, I can focus on the musical elements. It could be, you know, the chord structure, what needs to happen with the melody, what notes am I actually playing where, you know, is it on this string, is it on that string, do I like the tone color here? This way I don't have to think so much about, oh, is my finger rebounding or am I doing direct exchange or how do I want to do this? No, I do whatever I need to make it sound right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. And I would imagine it keeps the music a bit more fresh because you're already getting tons of repetition of the music. But then the divorcing the two gives you a chance to step away from the music, work on the technique, but not wear the music out so much with doing it over and over again with technique stuff in mind. So
because a lot of times the pieces will, like, if you're practicing, like, let's say, like, you know, let's just say there's like some tricky pull off, you know, like 4-3 or something, and then a hammer on 4-3-4, you know.
Are you talking about ascending and descending slurs?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Yeah. And let's say like that happens in the piece. I don't really like how it goes. Well, I'll just practice that until it sounds good. Well, if that's all I ever practice, like my hand will be unbalanced with the other slurs. So like I feel like, well, it's if that's not coming out good, it's time to practice my slurs, you know, and get that my hand, or warm up with that, knowing that I'm going to tackle that in my piece, you know, and really make sure that is the mechanics of it are working correctly. Because I like to the idea of by doing a complete exercise, like everything is more balanced. Typically, you know, I'm not just focusing on one or two fingers. I'm focusing on the whole hand and the technique in the whole hand.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. One thing that comes to mind again with these technique books, I kind of asked about, is there anything that's overboard? We discussed that a little bit. I think one thing that got in my head, an idea that got in my head along the way, is that a lot of technique books are dated. As you guys have heard, I haven't really looked through too many technique books. Mm-hmm. I got one. But what do you think about your recommendations, Tony? In your experience,
this is a brand new book
in those books that is dated?
The Keppel book, Keppel book is new? Is like it is like brand new.
Whoa, nice.
Copyright 2016.
The hottest stuff, eh?
So it is the latest and greatest.
Nice.
The Carlavaro stuff is a little bit. I mean, the book is older, obviously, but I think everything in here is applicable. I think it, while it's an older book, I would have to say that when it did come out, it was ahead of its time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting question, but I don't know. I mean,
no.
I can't really imagine that. Like, technique doesn't move that quickly, and it's not like we're going back and, like, you know, to like Segovia, like teaching or something, which, you know, still has its, like, I mean, you could kind of study the ideas that were like most particular to Segovia and his kind of school of thought, and still come out with a lot of like benefits too. So I don't think it's limiting. It might be different or different ideas, but I don't know. I mean, certainly you wouldn't want to, you know, bend your wrist a whole bunch.
Yeah, I don't know. Stop using the
Well,
A
that's
finger.
that book.
That could have been a wrong turn, guys. A finger could have been a wrong turn.
Have you read The Natural Guitarist, Scott?
No, not that I remember.
I'm trying to remember. It's a great book, but there are some things in there, Ben, that are dated.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, like how to hold the guitar and the posture and things like that is quite dated.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, that's not really a technique book. It's more like there is technique in there, but I don't know. That would not be like a book I would recommend. It's a very interesting read, but it's maybe not what I would recommend for like a technique book.
Yeah.
But I mean, like if you go through like, the Julio Segreras books or something like that, like there's some interesting ideas in there that like, and then we play music by Julio Segreras too, so
right.
Then you're like, okay, well, this is kind of from his teaching. And so it's very dated, but
I was just looking through those and they're great.
Yeah.
They're great. The Segreras books are great. I mean, it's not really a technique book, I would say. It's more just like a method book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's the Carcassi method book. You can get that's dated.
Well, we play Carcassi too, so I mean, having those books and thinking about those ideas.
It is great. Right. But like the stuff on like how to hold the guitar.
Yeah, sure.
Those kinds of things.
We need a table like Soar. We need to prop that bad boy up on a table, and then it gets the guitar wonderfully set.
But this also goes back to the idea of a model, right? Where I said, if you want to learn guitar, you should be listening to guitarists. You should be watching guitarists. I mean, with YouTube, why not? Like you can watch David Russell play, and he's got like perfect posture, perfect tone, perfect technique, like practically perfect. Okay,
yeah.
Realistically perfect, not like God level perfect, but realistically perfect. And he's a great model. You don't have to play and look exactly at him, but when you play and you look at yourself in the mirror and you look at a picture of David Russell, do I look remotely like this?
Yeah.
Am I hunched over? Well, maybe I need to sit up a little bit taller. Maybe, you know what I mean? So it's important to find role models outside of your teacher, but also your teacher should be a great model. That your teacher should play with the proper posture and proper technique.
That's a good point. Watching players on YouTube, because that's so accessible now. That is one thing I'll do every now and then, just to see the range of what people are successful with doing with their hand positions. Because there's some players out there who are doing some pretty weird stuff that I've seen, but they're like doing great. So I mean, we bring up Jason Vio a lot, but he has a pretty idiosyncratic technique. With the ping pong ball and whatnot. Well, for those who don't know, he glues on a ping pong ball for his thumbnail. But just what's possible. But even that's tricky because I've seen things that people have done, and they're doing it successfully, but then I've tried them myself, and then it hasn't worked.
That's what I was saying.
That's what I was saying. Weird thing to parse through.
Well, that's what I was saying with the generally accepted like technique that I feel like we all try to approach and then teach as well. It's like, there's a lot of deviations from that. And especially it seems like with high level players, like these are the best of the best. Then you look at them, you're like, well, they're not, they don't look like we're telling our
that's
students
incorrect.
It's like, you bring up a video of like some like, concert artist to a student. You're like, this is like, it's a GFA winner or something like that. And this is like, aspirational type kind of like, playing level for somebody who's like trying to be the best of the best. And like, and then you look at them and they're like, well, they're not doing this technique you showed me. And I think what you said is right on though, Ben, with the fact that like, somebody with a different hand shape, like bigger hands or something, they can do that. They can play like that, and it's just fine. And it sounds great, and it's very successful for them. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, most people cannot. Most people need the standard technique, and that's going to allow the most people the most success.
Yeah, Yeah.
I mean, people also have, you know, like not just hand shape difficulty with nail shape and things like that, but you know, with YouTube, you know, I followed a number of, you know, very fine concert guitarists, and even then, with them, you can see the development of technique over time. Even some of them that were child prodigies, and you can say, oh, you know, their guitar isn't so vertical anymore. It's coming back down to a more standard, you know, angle, height, you know, and you can see the way that they're you know, their right hand, like, you know, I remember watching. I've seen Gabriel Bianco play like La Cathedral several different times in several different videos, and you can see the progression of his interpretation change. You can see the progression of his technique changed. But I'm like, what I loved most. I mean, what I loved over the time was like the way his interpretation changed over time, and I was like, that's so cool. I mean, there was things I liked about this one interpretation over here, and then this interpretation over there, and it's really cool because of the internet. We can see that that change and that growth and that development. And I mean, how many times has Yo-Yo Ma re-recorded the cello suites? I think several times, and it's because he has a different idea. You know, he records them whenever he thinks he's made a breakthrough and has a completely different interpretation of them. And so, you know, while your journey, you know, is you're here, doesn't necessarily, you know, you can do a lot of things successful right now, and that's okay. And then, you know, over time it will change. It should change. We get older. You know, it's life. We get taller or shorter as we age.
Oh, no. Usually shorter.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually shorter. Oh man, yeah. That pivots us nicely to this idea of change over time. Because one thing that I've had to wrestle with quite a bit is this idea of I know where I'm at technically, can improve, and I'm working towards something that's successful and consistent. So I have a goal in mind, but at the same time, we have to remain open and understand that we learn for our entire lives. The way I've been working through it, I feel like there's thresholds that you break through, like significant points where your bubble expands, let's say. Because there is a difference between someone who, you know, can play high-level concert repertoire with their technique and someone who can't. So there's certainly thresholds that you break through. But on the other hand, it seems like you don't want your end goal to be stasis. Like you'd be like, I reached this certain point, and now my technique's good, and it's mostly perfect, and I'm fine. Seems like you have to learn for your entire life. What do you guys, I mean, Tony spoke to it a little bit. Think of the balance of breaking through thresholds and continuing to develop your entire life, and let things not get stale. Like, here's another thing. Do you think you reach a point where you no longer make radical changes? Because I've made so many radical changes. It's like, is there a level out point to like add another question on my other question? What do you guys think?
I mean, I think it slows down.
Yeah, that'd be
nice. For sure. I mean, you just make a choice at some point. You know, you're just
there's a choice, but there's also, is it working or not? You know, well, it's like you could make a choice to stick with something that doesn't work. Whoa, good for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a little blurry because at some point, you know, maybe something that doesn't quite work can become quite good at working, you know?
That's true. That's something that could happen.
And so, you know, you won't be, maybe it's not the best choice. It's not, you know, going to get you to the highest, you know, realization of your artistic dreams or something, but it can get you pretty far, I think, most of the time, you know? You can just work with it. But I mean, I also don't think being stagnant, I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's a little bit of a contradiction to what I was saying. Like if you expand the perimeter, like directly with technique, like, I don't know, maybe that's just one way to expand the perimeter, you know? It's certainly an important one. But I do think that there are other ways that you can grow, even technically, and I think that that can involve a certain type of listening too, that can really just transform your technique. And I mean, at some point, if you kind of let go of like, well, I've got to make this little tweak to gain this like little edge on, shifting into whatever, and then you just do it guided by your ear, maybe it's still a technique change. I don't know, but it's less about the kind of assessing the physical mechanics and more about just like, this is the technique I have, and I'm going to play it how I hear it with this technique. And I feel like my technique is so not complete, I have gaps in my technique, unbelievable gaps in my technique. But I feel like that to a degree, that's the point that I'm at. I'm no longer looking to expand my technique to say like, could I do this, that, or the other thing? I kind of work within my limitations and try to express the music in the ways that I want to.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point, because I like the idea of constant development over your life, but I wonder if there's a point where you're so comfortable in your model, what you've put time into, that to change to something more efficient would actually be less efficient, and that you're better off sticking with your long-term historical muscle memory, which will in the end limit you, rather than making a radical change to your playing.
Man,
Or maybe what do you think about that?
That's definitely on a case by case basis. If you have
it is
some very restrictive technique, like for some reason you never started like kind of considering playing on the tips of your left hand fingers, and like so you're having all sorts of issue with like executing, I don't know, some types of cross string slur type things. Then you should change that. But I don't know. I think if something came up and you found a deficit that you wanted to overcome, then you would do that. But it's just unclear to me how that would take place. Like, I mean, I feel like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I feel like
question.
If you were from like a different period, or you had a teacher who was like, maybe had a kind of outdated technique, like a turned in right hand wrist just bent or something. I mean, and you were kind of like, you had some awesome rest stroke, but your free stroke sounded like, banjo or something all of a sudden. And then you went to a university or something and your teacher was like, oh, hey, these should sound more similar, then you would have some work to do. But maybe as like, kind of a long-term player or something, to have something like come up, I don't know. I guess it's what you're happy with. It's like, if you don't really care about having a certain type of tone, then that's it. You just don't care about it.
Heck yeah. I don't give a rip about good tone. But yeah. What are your thoughts, Tony, on this idea of development over time? Maybe making a change isn't wise. What do you think about this business?
Well,
yes,
I think there are less bubbles or breakthroughs over time. There are minor. This is where I think flexibility comes in, because I think the more you play, the more you know yourself, you have flexibility. I don't need the perfect nail shape to play musically, right? So I do whatever the music needs and what my body's capable of, so that way I can play the most expressive. If that means I have to lean one way or another with my right hand, or if I didn't clip my nails and I'm already performing in my left hand, and I can't do a pull off the way I normally do it because it's going to get a little twangy. Well, then I adjust so that the pull off sounds the way it needs to sound, So there is something for flexibility in your technique. I try not to be so, it has to be like this. I do find like, yeah, having home, being very comfortable with home, but also being, this is my general overall technique, but then being flexible as things arise. Like, so I think, yeah. Okay, can you reiterate your question for me?
I can. Say you're in my position and you've changed your tilt recently.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's a huge change.
Mm-hmm.
That's like gonna take a while to set in.
Ah,
Is there a point where you're like, it's not worth it? Or it's like, should you take a step back to go forward?
it depends on what is coming up. So, like,
Significant performances,
like,
perhaps?
well, this is why, like, I've been like urging you to learn new rep.
Mhm.
Like, I think, it's time to get some new music, and then develop your technique. Develops or work on your technique on what those pieces require, and then you build up your technique so that you can play those at a great level, and then you move to new repertoire, and then you develop your technique around the new set of repertoire, and then you move to new repertoire, and you continue to do this, and by playing different repertoire and working your technique in a circular way, cyclical way, you come back to revisiting, well, none of the pieces I play need quick rest stroke scales, so I'm not going to practice that. And then you play something else, and you're like, oh, I need quick rest stroke scales, so I'll practice that. And so I don't ever think it's inefficient to change. I do think it's inefficient to make a big change, but you need to find home first. And so I think you're still searching for that.
I think so as well.
I do think you make big changes often. I think you should make smaller changes.
That's one thing I've resolved to do.
I think where you're at and how you play is great. And I think you just need to make some smaller adjustments, a little bit here, a little bit there, and then also be flexible. Like, well, maybe I just need to make an adjustment for today's rehearsal.
Yeah. It's a tricky thing to balance, but yeah, I do think there's definitely a threshold that you pass over of like, okay, you can do it. That's a good point though of keeping your technique development tied to new repertoire, because ultimately that is what your technique is for playing new music. So in a way you're kind of advocating for letting your repertoire guide your development. It's like if you've selected a new piece that you want to do that's reasonably within your skill level, what do you have to do to your technique to make it work? And then letting that experience guide you.
Yeah, right now I'm not playing any tremolo pieces, but I still will do like tremolo exercises, but not it's not part of my like daily practice. It's like my once a month. Like, let's do some tremolo. Let's make sure that I didn't lose that. So it's not like I just work on whatever I need to work on.
Yeah.
But there are still fundamental techniques that I practice, as warm-ups and as just a baseline too.
Yeah. But anyways, great advice. I've got some stuff to try, some books to pick up. Exciting. Well, once again, thank you for all who may have joined us for the latest journey on this episode of the DGT podcast. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.